Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock on January 10th, 2023. We're going to call to order this City of Gallatin Council Committee meeting, and we will begin with the roll call this evening. Ms. Kittrell?
Vice Mayor Love,
Linda.
Oh,
here. Councilman Carter, Councilman Fan,
Here.
Councilman Fennell,
Here.
Councilwoman George.
Here.
Councilman Hayes.
Present.
And Councilman Juvance. We have a quorum, Mayor.
everyone is present. Welcome. We have no minutes for you to vote on this evening, so we'll move on to public recognition. Public recognition is for any issue that you may have, whether it's on the evening's agenda or not, because this is a committee meeting. It does work much like a council meeting. You'll come to the podium, you'll state your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. So at this time, public recognition is now open, and you may come forward if you'd like to speak.
Council men and women. My name is Shirley Camp, and I live at 118 Wayne Street in Gallatin, and I'm here about the Laurelwood project. As you all know, I'm very much against it, and I'm against it just like all these people back there,
Keep your comments addressed to the
and two more
committee,
that didn't
please.
raise their hand. So I don't know what else to say, that I wish the best from you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Barrett. I'm at 114 Wayne Street. I stand with Shirley and Steve. We are not for this Laurelwood project. If it wasn't high-density homes and there wasn't so much traffic being rerouted down our very quiet and quaint little neighborhood, I wouldn't have a problem with it. A redevelopment at the back of the neighborhood for, say, single-family homes, I would be completely fine with. This cut-through road from Odin's Bend over to Wayne Street, though, would redirect a bunch of construction traffic right up our street. I have a 7-year-old son. I also speak for other people in the neighborhood who have very young children. My next door neighbor directly across the street is pregnant and about to have a child. All our children play outside. So to have what we're being told is an extra 700 cars a day on our street is completely unacceptable. So I beg of you guys, please don't put high density in the back of our neighborhood. It's a very nice, quaint little neighborhood with no crime as of right now. We'd like to keep it that way, or if it's going to expand, at least expand what it already is. Thank you. I hope you guys have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Baird.
Good evening, council and others. This is an announcement for everybody that can hear me. I'm here to make an announcement to remind all of us on January 16th, this coming Monday, that you are cordially invited to be in the parade. We have a march, our annual Martin Luther King Jr. Unity March. And we encourage you to be a part of our solution. You're welcome. Some can march. If you can't march, ride. It's a vehicle. And we'll leave here at 12 noon exactly. And it take about like 20, 25 minutes. Some will be walking. And you are cordially invited. Some of our city officials, essential workers, the police department, the sheriff department, the emergency medical,
Fire.
all essential workers and first responders are going to be in the parade. And we want you to feel free. And we usually have representation from our council. The program at 1 o'clock our mayor will be giving our greetings, welcome when she's on program. And I just want you to feel free to be a part of it, if it's okay. And I forgot to I tell you who I was. Charles Brinkley,
Yeah, you
155
did.
Apple
You
Drive.
actually did forget to tell us if you would. Charles Brinkley, what's your address?
155 Alpha Drive,
That's for the
Gallatin,
record.
Tennessee.
Hey.
37066
Mr.
5122.
Mr. Brinkley, I was going to mention that, but since you're there, do you want to mention who your speaker is for the event?
Our speaker, oh yeah, I'm glad you said that. Our speaker at 1 p.m. will be Manya Faye Proud, who is from Hendersonville, Tennessee. She's an entrepreneur. And we'll also have a marshal that's been selected, will be honored. Her name is LaToya Holcomb, Holcomb. And she is on the City Council of Portland. She's a city council member. You might know her. Okay. Any other questions? That's my final answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brinkley.
Good evening, it's Patrick Reeners, 317 Malone Drive, and I wanted to say thank you, Mr. Binkley. I never met you, probably seen you. Me and my buddy, we stopped by Walnut Crest in Red River about a month ago, and we picked up the trash because we figured, you know, people can talk about something or people can just go up there and do it. And for about a month, it stayed pretty clean. It felt good, you know. I had some bags in my truck. I pulled over. It took me like 10 minutes. It kind of made me feel good. And then every day when I drove by it, there was no trash there because you figure if there's trash there, someone's just like gonna throw some trash there. So we clean it up and feel good about it. For one, we don't have to complain about what the city didn't do because maybe that's our job too. You know, or the neighbors where the public easement, like I fell on the sidewalk one time and they told me I had to sue the owner of the house because they were responsible. So due diligence and, you know, whatever you have to deal with is really a good predicate to any behavior. And I want to tell you guys, I've been doing a little study, and you got to watch people when they cover their mouth before they talk, or they talk when they cover their mouth. It means they're usually going to lie to you. There's other things you can look at, you know, when you're sitting across from somebody, they might say something to you. And besides that, I just like to see videos of people cleaning up the neighborhood. Make me feel good. I think it'll make the neighborhood feel good too. Because y'all want to feel good, don't you? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rainers. Anyone else wishing to speak this evening under public recognition?
Councilman, Mayor, I'm Doug Stinson. I live at 126 Lorraine Drive. And my neighbor said that he had a small child. And the neighbor was expecting. Well, I have neither one. So, but me and my wife have to get out that street. And, you know, if they want to, if they get bound to build that conglomerate down there, I can't see any reason. They've got a street going in and out off of Driver's Lane. Why do they have to come out on our street? And I'm just here tonight to beg you guys not to pass that Laurelwood apartment house to me. Now, and if you do, think about what you would do if it was you or your parents that were going to be affected with this. And if you're one that figures that you just can't kill this bill, then while you're figure how much it's going to lower my taxes to how much it's going to depreciate my property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stinson.
Mayor and Council. My name's Taylor Biondi. I live at 129 Wayne Street, so another one of us here. I want to recognize that I know we are in a housing crisis across the country and that housing is a great need, especially affordable housing. And so I know that we need more homes in Gallatin. Gallatin's a great place to live. I do want to recognize, though, that like Mr. Beard mentioned, like high density housing in this particular place is probably not the best option to move forward with. I'm not sure if you're familiar with our neighborhood, but it's quite small. The road is very narrow. We have no sidewalks and we have no traffic light. And so with our children and we're walking our dogs, and it's just not it. Putting 700 more cars there a day would completely change the character and the safety level of where I live. So I hope you consider that when you move forward deciding about the Laurelwood property. Thank you.
David Freund. I'm at 130 Wayne Street. I'm another of this motley crew that has come up tonight. I am relatively new to the neighborhood, so I've been in Gallatin since about June of 2022. Moved out here because of the small town feel of this area from Nashville, where it was, getting pretty congested and pretty expensive to live. Chose this neighborhood for myself and my 9-year-old daughter specifically because the traffic was a little lighter. It was a quiet neighborhood. The neighbors that I met were all fantastic people. I think that we all know that progress is inevitable. It's going to happen. I don't think any of us that are coming up here to speak tonight are, deluding ourselves to that. We understand that things are going to be built and we have to house the people that are moving to the area. I would just like to reiterate again that based on the format of our current neighborhood, the yard sizes, all of those things, that putting high density housing at the base of this development is going to be pretty negatively impactful to the folks that live in this neighborhood. And so I would really just encourage all of you to kind of think about how we want Gallatin to look and grow over the next few years. We're putting in a lot of high density housing, which is great. There are tons of people moving to the area. It's for good reason. But I think that we want to make sure we're doing it right. We want to make sure that we're preserving the things that are bringing people out here in the first place. And so I think for a small neighborhood, like for those of us off Lorraine and Wayne Drive, putting that many cars on our road is going to be just absolutely, incredibly disruptive to that neighborhood. So thank you for your consideration on that. And hopefully I will not be back for another one of these, but you never know, I may be. So thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one, I will declare the end of public recognition. Moving on to mayor's comments. I do have a special introduction to make to you all this evening, and that is our new CIO, Jennifer Lefevre. I won't make you get up and speak, but she started yesterday. We're so glad she's here, and look forward to having her here in the city of Gallatin. Were there other department heads? Nick, did you want to make an introduction? Or are you going to make him stay the whole meeting? Do you introduce him now or later? Go for it.
Charles has been with us from TDOT. He is now our assistant city engineer for capital improvements and public works. And then you guys may be familiar with Mr. Aaron Hickson. He was recently promoted with our restructure as our assistant city engineer for development and traffic. So, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
I think that was it. And Nick is delighted to have them, and we are as well. His structure has come to fruition, and now the work that they are going to accomplish is going to move right along, right? Okay, I have just a couple of announcements beyond that this evening about events coming up. Mr. Brinkley mentioned the Martin Luther King Sorry, I dropped my pen. Martin Luther King Unity Day Parade and Program coming up on Monday. That is a city holiday. That reminds me, you should have gotten a notice in your utility bill that shows you all the garbage collection delays. If you did not get one, you can go on our website and find that. I keep mine on the refrigerator, so I remember what days the trash doesn't go out. But trash will be delayed next week because Monday is a city holiday. On Tuesday, the 17th at 11:30, there's going to be a ribbon cutting for a new mural at the Gallatin Shalom Zone. If you've been on social media, you might have seen a preview of that. On the 20th, there is a Good Morning Gallatin kickoff. I'll remind you that's formerly the Gallatin Government Relations meeting that the chamber has hosted for probably 3 decades now. Senator Bill Haggerty will be the guest, and they're doing it as a luncheon, and it is going to be at 11 a.m. Northfield Church on the 20th. On the 26th, the Clearview Park Community Engagement Meeting is happening at the Shalom Zone, and that is from 6 until 8 p.m., and that is related to the community center that we have been discussing building over there. And then on the 1st of February is Councilman Hayes' birthday. So I think that is all for the announcements for the evening. I do want to mention something to this council, just because in our department head meeting yesterday, it was discussed, and I think they're right. It was brought to my attention that I had been calling up department heads at the end of the meeting, and that has not been a usual and customary action on the part of me or this body, but we've just been doing it to get answers quickly for people. And so I told them that I'm going to be very respectful of that, but I would also encourage all of you to do the same and realize that our department heads are available to you most of the time. So if you've got a question, give them a call, ask them before and after a meeting, and they will do their best to answer that. But I think it's most respectful if we try to refrain from putting them on the spot, and they may appreciate that because they have a lot of things at the top of their head, but not all things. So that would conclude mayor's comments and move us now to the regular agenda. And the first item is ordinance 02301-8, and Mr. McCord is going to present this for us.
Bill McCord, city planner. Got a new pointer here, and sure, turn this one on. Different from the one I've used before. Okay, this first item tonight is a request for a preliminary master development plan on a 40.2. There we go. Okay, 40.26 acre parcel of land located east of Greenlee Boulevard and south of Long Hollow Pike, north of Vietnam Vets Boulevard. This is known as the Griffin Farm North, and it's zoned MU. They're not requesting rezoning, they're just requesting a preliminary master development plan. This is part of a property that was annexed back in 2010, or 2008, excuse me, and zoning was established on that without a preliminary master development plan. But this will require, and this is the opportunity to prove one at this time. The project, again, is 40 acres. It is adjacent to Liberty Creek, and that area that you see on the screen there that's in blue includes not only the creek, but the floodplain associated with it of Liberty Branch. Again, this is a survey of the property. The property is basically a field, and it includes one single-family residence. Of course, the Liberty Creek drainage basin. The applicant intends to develop a project in 2 phases. The first phase will consist of an apartment complex that will be constructed in the central portion of the property. It will include 15 buildings and 286 units. One of the buildings will include some retail establishment. I'll show you in the renderings what that will look like. So of the 15 buildings, 14 of them will be your typical garden style type apartments. And they will also have accessory garages and a clubhouse and a pool and amenities and things of that sort. But one of the buildings will include commercial uses on the first floor. The development would include an extension of Beatty Boulevard from where it currently ends in the adjacent Hunter Point development and extending it westwardly over to Greenlee Boulevard and intersect between Liberty Creek and Long Hollow Pike. As you may be aware, the properties to the east is including the Hunter Point development, which includes a variety of commercial as well as an apartment complex. And to the north is the Cambridge Shopping Center and Cambridge Farm subdivision. And to the northwest is the Stratford subdivision. Is at the end of Long Hollow Pike and Greenlee Boulevard. Along Long Hollow Pike, there would be 5 separate buildings to support a variety of retail and restaurant uses. And these would front again on Long Hollow Pike and back up to the apartment complex. There would be a driveway that would be constructed to serve both the commercial uses as well as provide an additional access point for the apartment complexes to Long Hollow Pike, and it would align with Buckingham Boulevard, which is the main entrance into the Cambridge Farm subdivision. So together, phase 1 and phase 2 would include both of these types of commercial and residential uses. As I mentioned before, it's 15 3-story apartment buildings with 286 units. And that represents about 4,300 square feet of area, taking out half of the floodplain, which is part of the zoning ordinance, and represents a density of 10.13 units per acre. Now, normally under the character area and the existing MU zoning, that you could get up to about 14 and a half units per acre. So it's not as dense as it is entitled under the zoning with the preliminary master development plan. This plan will also include a variety of accessory uses, as I mentioned, garages that will be for some of the apartment units, and surface parking would primarily provide parking for the site. There'll also be open space and retention and water quality treatment that will be located on the south side of Beatty Boulevard extension between Beatty Boulevard and the creek. So all the stormwater would be piped to a regional, if you want to call it a regional stormwater system that would serve all of this development from Long Hollow Pike southward down to the creek. In addition to that, along the creek and then the floodplain, there would be an easement that would be established for continuation of the greenway, which is part of the city's transportation and multimodal element. Buffer yards would be required and are provided both between the apartment units and the adjacent properties, and those are standard buffer yards. There's no exceptions requested for the buffer yards. The buildings include, as I mentioned, one building will include retail on the bottom floor, and this would be near the northwest corner of the apartment properties, near where the Beatty extension would intersect with Greenlee Boulevard. So this would be your corner building, and it would be local restaurants, perhaps barber shop, as they're depicting here. Specific users, of course, are not identified at this stage. So the buildings would be 3 stories, and as you see with most of our apartment complexes, they have a gabled roof. So the height of that, which is shown, is measured at the middle portion of the gabled roof, midway point, requires them to request a exception for the building height. Instead of being 35 feet, they want it to be up to 38 feet. Planning Commission did review that exception request, which is standard and has been granted for many of the apartment complexes throughout the city, especially the ones more recently constructed that are 3 stories in height. And so that would be an exception that you would want to consider if you, in your discussions of this plan. As I mentioned, the site also includes parking, and there would be 582 residential and or commercial spaces and 364 spaces identified for the 5 commercial buildings along Long Hollow Pike. And of course, that's subject to change depending on the size of the buildings and the detailed specific uses. The buildings would be at least a minimum of 70% brick or stone, as you see in this rendering. I have elevations that show the sides on all 4 sides of the building. And these are the typical buildings, other than, of course, the ones that will support also commercial uses. So you get an idea of where those brick, stone, and other materials will be located. And this, of course, here at the bottom is showing the retail building, which will have basically a flat type roof for most of the structure, whereas the gabled roof would be provided on the more traditional garden style type apartments. They will have a clubhouse in the center of the complex off of Beatty Boulevard and accessory garages. So it's typical of these renderings showing what those would look like. Commercial buildings would be what we've generally seen throughout the city, recently constructed here. It would include brick and stone facades that will meet or exceed the city's requirements for architecture. The item was reviewed by the Planning Commission in December, and the Planning Commission had recommended by a 7-0 vote that this master plan be approved with those exceptions that I've listed in my discussion. So I'm glad to.
Or is there a representative for the project here?
I believe there is, and I'm sure they would love to speak to you.
Just help answer questions. Ms. Love?
Bill, this is zoned MU, right? And apartment complexes are allowed in that zoning, is that correct?
Yes, they are. With an approved master development plan.
And there's another apartment complex that's kind of going to be adjacent to this?
It's already there. It's the Hunter Point complex, and it's completed. Let me get the location map here. And
Background on that Hunters Point development, because that may have predated you. That master development plan originally did not have apartments in it, and they came back and changed it, which I was not in favor of. And so I'm looking at this, I'm studying it, and I agree that it's the right place. I mean, that's what Greenlee was built for. But I'm concerned about the impact that this number of apartments with all the other apartments that are currently in the pipeline are going to have. Because, you know, it's different when you're absorbing in a single-family home neighborhood, because they all don't get built so quickly. But we've seen the impact on most of the schools and the roads when we had several apartments come online at the same time. So I just worry about it being the right time for this. I love the retail. I actually love that one building that has the retail down below, but I'm worried about trying to absorb that many units in that pretty populated area with the construction of 386, you know, slated happening.
Go ahead, Linda.
I agree.
Just for.
Miss
Hold
Love.
on, Linda
Miss
Love
got
cut
finished.
off.
I interrupted her and
She got cut
everybody
off,
else did.
yeah.
I was just going to say that I do like the retail part too, but I'm thrilled about another apartment complex being added there with that, especially with that many units on a road that's already got a
And-
ton of apartments.
And that's the thing we've got to think about too, is because you've got to look at the number that we have out there right now. I think Bill and I were discussing this today about the number that we have out there right now already planned and under construction, you know, and it's probably in the neighborhood of 2,000 units right now. So I'm kind of like what Linda, you know, that the retail, everything like that, but the apartments, you know, that's, and it is a good location for them if you want some, but it's just right now, the timing probably is just not right. in my opinion. But
For that piece of it. Mr.
If-
Javance, were you waiting?
Yeah,
to- no.
to get a wider picture, if you had this number of apartments and you had enter points, it's almost the same amount of units you have on the other side at Cambridge Farm. And Cambridge Farm is massive, so we basically compact all these people on a small spot. And the traffic study is just, traffic studies say more than 4,300 trips a day. That's coming on that road where people are gonna go and where people are gonna go coming from Cambridge Farm, because their main entry is right at the exit of Cambridge Farm. I'm on that road every day, and people at Cambridge Farm, you can't turn anymore. Even now, you have issue turning. So what's planned for that? If that's approved, what's the plan for Cambridge Farm, who's already a cut through to Highway 25 back there?
Yeah, we don't have a traffic study for this. That was a trip generation projection based on the types of units and the type of retail that was identified with the master plan. So that would be, yes, 4,336 average daily trips that would be generated by all the uses on the site. Equates to roughly 601 PM peak hour trips. The roadways in this immediate area, with the exception of the approach to Long Hollow Pike intersection of Vietnam Vets, all are operating within what commonly is considered an adoptable level of service or adopted level of service for those communities who have adopted a level of service. And that's usually a D or an E level. Now, that is similar to what you might see with a grade in school. So if you were to receive a D or an E, there is no E, there's an F. And then we also have a level service A, which is essentially free flow. Since we don't have adopted level service, it's very subjective when things like this are discussed. I do have a new tool here, on this new pointer here. I wanted to point it
Oh,
out. There's the
fancy.
apartment complex next
Nice.
door. So now we can point at the screen.
Yeah, that's great.
So I wanted to mention that. So we do not have a traffic study. One is required, but our code does not require one until the final master development plan. But we try to go to some degree to provide you information on traffic volumes to be generated by this particular plan. Now, some other use that's permitted in MU zoning may generate, it's not multifamily residential or even commercial, maybe an office complex, could generate similar volumes of traffic.
McCord, I have two things. One, not a traffic engineer, but it looks like the traffic flow within the development is directing most of the traffic to Long Hollow, because trying to get out to Beatty is really wiggling around. But there may be method in that I don't grasp. And then
Well,
my
there are two driveways. Whoop.
I know, I
Lot
see
line.
them, but you follow the path to get to those versus the path to get out on Long Hollow, and it seems a little going, you gotta go a big circle around, but I realize that it's not really, it's smaller when you're looking at the compaction of a development like this.
And it's not a very long distance either way.
And then my second question, I know this is one that we've kind of batted about before, but it might be time. And I would ask, what is the process to get to the point where we require a a traffic study with a preliminary master development plan? And could we do that, not specific to this this development, but in general? And could we do it where it has an expiration? Because preliminary master development plan, that traffic study is going to be real different if a couple of years go by. Or how long is a preliminary master development plan good for?
It's good for up to 3 years unless they get an FMDP approved on a portion or all of the project before that 3-year period. So our code doesn't require a preliminary master development plan to be submitted or to be reviewed with a traffic study, full-blown traffic study. We've had people who have provided that, though, very few. And so it would require us to amend our code to make it a requirement to submit it.
I
But most
just-
people volunteered
I
to do that.
just
when
foresee
there's
a
been discussion.
scenario in which, somebody goes down the road and we approve a preliminary plan and then we get to the final and see the traffic impact. And there's been a whole lot of time wasted at that point, for the investor.
Well, there could be some other background trips or other projects that were not taken into consideration when the initial, if it were done at the PMDP stage.
Update it,
It could be.
do one at the preliminary and then
Could be.
update it at the final.
I think that that's probably where we're going. I don't know that we will advise, and Nick would want to speak on this, advise that a full-blown traffic study be provided at the PMDP level, but something more than what we receive now or what we produce ourselves to provide you an indication of the total trip generation, because that's not really telling you a whole lot. Other than there's a certain volume of trips on the roadway. Now, I will let you know that a roadway like Greenlee Boulevard, which is a 5-lane with a center turn lane with few traffic signals on that stretch of road now, will carry, in an urbanized area, will carry roughly probably 35,000 vehicles per day, and within what most cities adopt as an acceptable level of service, which is D or E. So, and we're not anywhere close to that. Of course, we have some signals that will be added onto that roadway. And as more signals are added to that roadway, it will decrease that carrying capacity of that road, even though you don't change the lane configuration. So,
But Long Hollow can't handle all that.
no, Long Hollow, it's not going to receive it all. And that's the one reason you have Beatty Boulevard going to Long Hollow on one end. Actually goes up to, and there's internal capture. I can get kind of out of bounds on here.
That's where a traffic study would be helpful.
Into the weeds, but this network of driveways and roadways extensions are meant to diffuse that traffic and not concentrate it on one road. That's when you're really getting yourself into trouble, is when you force all of this traffic of any project to one road. Because it's having to double back and then double count it on its impact on the network, including Long Hollow Pike. And so those 4,300 trips are not going to be all assigned to Long Hollow Pike. They're not going to be all assigned to Greenlee or to Vietnam Vets.
Personally, I just feel like the infrastructure is not strong enough to add all those apartment dwellers, cars especially.
Has any of the retail or the commercial been identified as what they want to put there?
You might want to ask the applicants that. I'm not aware. They've just used general terms like restaurant and retail. I believe
Yes.
they are, yes.
And I would probably disagree that the infrastructure is not able. It's just we don't know until we can observe the impact. And the problem with that kind of impact is it happens so all at once. I know, we've always done really well working with the school system, but I do know that there was some stress when we had so many apartments in one area come online and so many kids went into one school. That really caused, and when you look at where most of our apartments are. So I don't know if infrastructure can't handle it is appropriate versus that's a lot of impact at once, considering what other impact.
Which is what I
also
meant,
having.
really.
Well, help me put words in my mouth. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you may recall, I have, about once a year, I'll hand out a big old spreadsheet that tells you what the traffic volumes are on various segments of roadways in the city, mostly larger capacity roadways. And the only roadway in this area that is perceived as being over capacity is that segment of Long Hollow Pike from Long Hollow Pike Vietnam Vets intersection 2109. So Long Hollow Pike west of Vietnam Vets is not over capacity. It's got room to grow, if you will. Additional capacity could be added with by adding turn lanes. That buys you 5% or so if you had left and right turn lanes.
Do you guys want to hear from the representatives? Lance, you recognize?
Yeah, I would love to hear, but I was gonna, you mentioned school, and the question I had is that if anybody contacted Sumner County School and the,
Director of Schools has assured me that they stay on top of what our development is happening and that they are prepared to handle what we build. But I do know from history, there was that one impact, and it had to do with a lot of apartments coming online at one time that were zoned for one school. And it's interesting because some apartments have almost no students in school, and then some apartments will have more students in school. Has to do honestly with price point to some degree and how many 3-bedroom units there are and that kind of thing. So
because one we didn't mention too is Chandler was gonna come, who has been approved too, and there was a lot of apartments too on the other side, so on top of these guys.
I don't recall seeing in this, Mr. McCord, 3, 2, 1 bedrooms. Do you?
It's listed in the site plan data sheet. So if you have that in front of you,
Remember,
it's this sheet right here, and it's on the lower left-hand side.
okay, I've got right here.
So sheet C 1.0 in the lower left-hand side, it gives you the breakdown of the, both parking and types of units that they're looking to put in there. Now, it's a very small print on mine, and I know it is on yours as well.
Not telling me, okay. 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, 84 units with 1 bedroom, 202 with 2 bedrooms or more. It is very small print.
I didn't bring my magnifying
Thank you,
glass.
Dr. Stamper, that I can read it.
I think the commercial part is great. I like the rendering of the commercial with the apartment on top. I think that's a great rendering, and I think that's what we need. We need commercial more than apartment. We need space for small and mid-sized business to come here and bring us, jobs.
This proposal, they are proposing to do the housing in the
First.
first phase and the commercial. So, one concession I might suggest is asking them to reverse that. I do think we've talked about bringing the representatives up here. Do y'all want to do that right now?
And the ADA representative had mentioned that they would like to have some consideration of starting some of the commercial, lost my screen here,
There's also, Mr. Henschel.
to providing some type of phasing where at least while that the commercial portion of it would be underway when the first units are CO'd. So, of course, the 15th building there with the mixed use, that would occur simultaneously.
Also a height variance requested.
Exception for height, yeah, slight exception for height.
I'd like to know if their commercial is gonna bring more traffic, or is it kind of suited for what will be the existing residents?
There will be internal capture, and depending on the specific commercial type uses, whether it's restaurants, obviously it's going to have some internal capture from the apartments, meaning those are trips that are not leaving the site. You're not having to get out on Long Hollow Pike or one of the other adjacent roadways to serve that trip need. Hopefully there'll be a walking trip. You also likely have some walking trips as this area builds out from the existing residential areas. So those will hopefully be a higher percentage of trips that are being generated from Fairway Farms and Cambridge Farms and so forth that will be patronizing these locations to get services and restaurant and retail where they won't have to travel a further distance away somewhere else in the town to impact those roads as well. So there's the pass-by trips and the internal capture trips can reduce the load on the area network.
How classification it doesn't include like the car service type businesses. Does it include like convenience stores?
MU,
No, retail.
retail, yes.
Because I mean, the
included
reason I
in-
ask that is because these are being specified as drive-through restaurant retail and then mixed-use retail. And so, there's a difference between what retail looks like versus what a convenience store looks like. as far as traffic goes.
Yeah, and they would be just like, on the Hunter Point property next door, they would be able to have that type of use if that was what the market would demand.
They could have.
In
a
this
C-store.
case, they're not showing that, though. They're showing just
That's
a
it.
variety of retail and office uses.
Okay. Yeah,
And Mayor, you made a great point mentioning the 386 construction and have an issue with that because we don't really know when that's gonna start and where all these people are gonna go when they close lands on the 386 and start building. So everything is gonna dump probably on Longfellow Park, who's already a busy space right now.
I do not think that they will. That's pretty good about building the new space before taking down the old space, so hopefully they would do that. We're years away from knowing what that's exactly gonna look like. Representatives, I've mentioned it several times. I hate for you guys not to come up here and have, whatever words you'd like.
Good evening, folks. Marty Cook, I represent the owner and developer of this property. As Mr. McCord said, this property has been zoned MU since 2010. And what the owner and developer are trying to do is bring forth the exact type of project that was contemplated when it was zoned for this use. And as Mr. McCord said, it is actually much less dense than what they would be entitled to under the zoning they have. So what they're wanting and proposing to do is have that exclusive commercial up on the road frontage, have that mixed use with the commercial on the bottom and residential units on the top, kind of also in the mix, and then transition back to strictly residential. A couple of things that were important that we offered at the Planning Commission, even though not required, and really that couldn't have been required because this is not a rezone, but just something that out of in a spirit of good faith that the owner and developer thought might be helpful and was some things that the Planning Commission did appreciate. And that was that we are going to do, or they are going to do, the mixed commercial product as part of phase one. And then the owner family has committed that even though it would be a pretty large task to have a PMDP amended, they have committed that they would not come back at any point, like the mayor alluded to with the previous development, that they would not come back and ask to add residential to the sections that are committed to commercial at this time. Those will always remain commercial. There would never be an attempt on their part to come back later on and add residential to this. So again, it's the type of mixed use development and product that was anticipated for this property since 2010. That's the right under the current zoning that this owner has. You know, it will be phased. It'll be a long time before there's actual units online. So I think any concern that everything's going to happen all at once is
25.
Sorry?
Said 5, I thought.
2025, yeah, so it'll be 2 years before that's in place. The engineers and developers and land use folks are here if there are any technical questions. But certainly something in that area that we feel like is what was always anticipated for that area, and something we hope the city would be proud of. I know economic development really liked that courtyard style with the commercial on the bottom and the residential on top, and the potential for having cafes or retail or whatever on the bottom. So it's something that they want to be attractive and something that's well received.
Questions from?
Have you identified any
Wait, wait.
commercial?
Ms. George,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No, Ms. George, I just had 2 people speaking at once, so.
Sorry, I
I'll
didn't
go
hear.
left.
Do you have you identified any one commercial group that would like to occupy that space?
Not yet. That would be market driven. Although I did want to mention one thing. Intentionally, the developers have struck convenience store as a conditional use. So that is not something that the developers want on one of those commercial out parcels. They want more of the retail center style that was shown in the renderings.
What is the percentage of the commercial to the residential?
I don't know the answer to that. It's not a calculation we've run. I would make one point, and I'm Jay Easter with Reagan Smith, landscape architect and project manager with Reagan Smith. The infrastructure for the commercial is coming through the apartment complex. The stormwater infrastructure has to flow through to the regional detention pond. That's one of the reasons why the multifamily to the south is in the first phase, so we can provide that infrastructure to allow the commercial to develop.
Mr. Fan, was it you?
Do we have a start date from the state that's going to extend 109 where we don't have?
No. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, that's, you're gonna have to put the infrastructure anyway, if you want to go through the full project. So, in my mind, when you arrive and say, we're gonna build the apartment first because we need to build the infrastructure, that's gonna have to be there anyway. I think the EDA was clear, it's in a report, they want commercial first. I think we need commercial more than apartments. Again, I know why you guys want to put apartment first, because that's the easy way to get the return on investment. It's a lot easier to put people in an apartment than finding people to go in a commercial space. I understand that, but I don't think that's what we need there. We have already too many apartments, and I understand I was on MU a long time ago, and I think there is issue with the zoning code we should, as a city, grow really look at. And I'm looking at the site plan. When you say it's not dense, it's dense. It's not dense on the paper, on the numbers, because a third of the property is a flood zone, and you cannot build there. And I'm pretty sure that was not a flood zone, you would have built more unit there. So it's dense.
I'm Clint Patterson, Sterling Development. I'm the developer on the project. I will say that the calculations of that unit density is taken into how the code is reflected. And I think it was spoken upon. You can only count a portion of that wetland and floodplain, so that drives that even further down in reality, because we're not using that side of the ground, and we typically do not like tenants to come across the main street anyway, so we would actually probably not build on that side if it was even developable, just because you don't want people crossing the roads like that if it becomes busy. So I would hope that you guys would consider the tax base and the retail and everything that comes along with this. We're building an extremely nice project. And I would also say that these rooftops will help bring that retail. The infrastructure that is needed to bring down the stormwater and everything, those retail centers cannot stand on their own economically to bring that all the way down that far. And that's why it's built from the backside up, if you will, and then where they can tie in. So the multifamily and mixed use component can handle and bear that cost, where then the retail is the beneficiary of that. So that's why it's set up and staged that way. We've done it throughout the Southeast several times and found it to be very successful that way, and it helps breed the right kind of retail tenants as well.
25%, Bill?
Yeah, no. Just over 10% in the floodplain. So about 4.5 acres of the 40 and a quarter acres is in the floodplain, and they only get credit for half of that density to build into their project. And again, they're only building a little over 10 units an acre, where the code comp plan allows up to almost 14.5 units an acre. So, I'll clarify that.
Any other comments or questions from this body? Okay, what's the will of the body?
I'd like to move it on to council.
Motion's moving on to council.
Second.
I have a second to move it on to council. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of moving ordinance 02301-8 on to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
And Ms. Kittrell will ask you for a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Love,
No.
Councilman Fan,
Yeah.
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilwoman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilman Fennell,
No.
and Councilman Juvance.
No.
There, we have 4 yeses and 3 nos.
Move on to council, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is ordinance 02212-71. Mr. McCord, you again.
Plug me in there, Jeff.
And haven't we discussed this before and we asked that it come back to a work session? as I
That's
recall?
right. That's right. It was deferred at the last council committee meeting. This is a request for a rezoning and a preliminary master development plan for Laurelwood Park. And it did come to the committee in December and was deferred. So we obviously have some new members, so I'm going to go through this again as thoroughly as I can. And identify this property is located south of Drivers Lane, which is this roadway right here, and east of Highway 109 South Water Avenue, which is this roadway here. And Lorraine Drive is right, this thing is not working just like I hoped it would, right there. And Wayne Drive is right here. And this makes a little loop street. It's a loop street that comes off 109 down on the south end of town. So the area that's outlined in yellow is the property that we're considering. It consists of 25 acres, and most of it is zoned R15, medium density residential, and a small portion of it is zoned R10, which is 2 acres of the 25 acres, and they're requesting MRO zoning with this preliminary master development plan. As you can see, and I want to focus on this because this was brought up in some of the comments, is that the area where Lorraine Drive and Wayne Street is single-family homes on roughly 125 foot wide lots and quarter acre lots roughly. And to the north there's a mobile home subdivision, mobile home type park here. And then there, in this area right where I'm showing here on the screen, is a series of modular homes that are divided or constructed as duplexes. And then further on to the north and east along Drivers Lane, you have a variety of single-family homes and a couple of trailers. And then to the north of that, you have single-family homes on roughly the same size lots that you have on Lorraine and Wayne. Now, moving along here, the developer is proposing to construct a series of streets that will interconnect from Drivers Lane southward and southwestwardly to tie in and extend on this drawing Lorraine Drive. Wayne Street, which is at the very southwest corner of this property, is identified in the city's multimodal element to be a future collector roadway that will be extended onto the east all the way over to Steam Plant Road, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But the applicant here is wanting to rezone this property to MRO, and they want to build 102 units, 98 of which are townhome units, individual lots, fee simple lots, and 4 single-family lots. And the single-family lots would be positioned here adjacent to the extension of Lorraine Drive, adjacent to the existing subdivision along Lorraine Drive. A substantial portion of this development would be left in open space. So the density on this development is just over 4 units per acre, which is well within the parameters of the suggested or recommended densities under the suburban land use, which was part of the comp plan that was prepared and adopted last year. The townhomes would be on reduced lots, so they are asking for exceptions for lot sizes, and that is described. That exception and related exceptions are described in your agenda report on page 3. So normally in the MRO zoning for these types of residences, a lot size of 6,000 square feet is required. They're asking for a lot size of 2,730 square feet, keeping in mind that more than 50% of this whole project is an open space. And this is a tool that is used commonly to preserve those open space areas, including buffer yards. The lot width would be from 60 feet to 30 feet. For the single-family lots with detached homes, the exception that they're asking for is just for lot width from 60 feet to 55 feet. The lots would still be 6,000 square feet. So that is an exception that you're going to be asked to consider, which in conjunction would remove some of the size of the yards in conjunction with the reduced lot size. The Planning Commission did review that and has recommended approval of this rezoning with this master plan by a 4-2 vote. Let me go into a little bit more description. As I mentioned, there will be 98 of the fee simple attached townhome lots and 4 single-family lots. This is a little bit bigger layout, and of course, you've had this in your agenda package. It shows you how the streets would be extended through there. There is a small creek that extends up through the center of the property, and of course, that would be left in open space. And some of the open space areas would include stormwater detention facilities that serve this area and provide code compliant stormwater. None of the other developments in the immediate area have stormwater systems in them because they're so old. And this was also brought up. Development under the current zoning could be constructed with single-family homes with a conditional use permit. And I wanted to give you, and we've been doing this a little bit more frequently, but it's a comparison on attachment 5, which gives you an indication of the trip generation that could be provided for with this development. Now, if it were developed under the plan that they have there with the townhomes, the Laurelwood townhomes, with the single-family units and the townhomes, an estimated 594 daily trips would be generated, of which 56 peak hour trips, and that's what most people are concerned about, I think, is peak hour trips would be generated by that. Now, that might be reduced by 1 peak hour trip and up to probably about 6, actually reduced by 6, so 588 daily trips because they reduced the number of units by one of the townhome units, since this was initially reviewed by the Planning Commission. So it's a reduction, actually, even from what the Planning Commission recommended. In comparison, under the existing zoning, which is R15 and R10, with single-family homes built, and I'm going to have to let you know that single-family homes on separate lots that are not attached lots generate more trips per unit than a townhome lot does. And that comes from ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, who have for many, many years, I forgot what edition they're on now, like 11th edition. So for many, many years, they've been doing these detailed surveys throughout the country. And to gauge and measure how much trip generation from all these various uses, single-family homes obviously are the most studied. So they generate a little less than 10 trips per unit, where a townhome is about 6.5 or 5.5 trips per unit. So under the existing zoning, if they built single-family homes, they'd also would produce 56 peak hour trips, but 526, slightly less daily trips. With a conditional use permit in that zoning district, they would be able to get possibly as many as 97 units in there. 55 units, we estimate, single-family units, with the traditional zoning, and 97 with the conditional use permit. Whereas with the townhome units, they would have 102 units, is what they're proposing. Either way, it's almost the same type of trip generation, even though there's a different mix of units. So I want you to be aware of that. And of course, with this project, they would, as our code requires, they provide stub outs to future development, or what we anticipate would be future development, and mainly to the east and to the south, including a stub out which would be to a future collector roadway. So this network of roads that they're proposing with this project would diffuse traffic. It wouldn't all go to and from Lorraine or Wayne or to Driver's Lane. It would be diffused. And likewise, the benefits of the existing residents would not only be able to use these roads, but these residents would use the existing roads as well. That gives them options from getting out. So I think what's been mentioned before, I think it was mentioned at the Planning Commission as well, is that because of volumes on Highway 109, that residents in Wayne and Lorraine at times have difficulty getting on the 109. This would give them the opportunity to get out onto either 109 or some other area of town, east and north of town, without having to get onto 109. The townhome units, architecture would comply with the city's code, have at least 70% brick and stone facade, and this is a rendering of what those units would be. And you can see they would also have garages. There's a color rendering of what they generally would look like. We don't have a rendering of what the single-family homes would look like. Now, this is something that I've added since the last time we met, and this shows you the adopted major thoroughfare plan of the city. This shows a series of green streets that you see down here. Many of these streets exist now, but a lot of them don't. And one of those is identified as a future collector roadway from where I'm showing it on the screen here at 109, using Wayne Street and then extending eastward over to Steam Plant Road. A couple other images that I have, and there's a blow up that's also in the transportation element, shows the same thing. Shows Wayne Street being the first portion, which is already constructed, of that future collector road that extends over to Steam Plant Road. There are other collector roadways that are shown here in blue that have not been constructed yet that would tie in existing roads, including Driver's Lane to some of these other streets, and including down to Odom's Bend Road. So this is a net, and you hear me say this all the time. I can't say this enough. Building an interconnected roadway network, particularly a collector roadway, is what will save you from traffic congestion that most people complain about. They don't want these roads apparently near them, but this will save them from the horrendous traffic congestion that you see in a lot of communities that have not taken this effort and have not made this a priority for traffic circulation, and it's created a lot of problems. So you see me and Nick all the time up here. With very rare exceptions, we want not just the spine network of the roadways, the arterials, collectors, roadways to be interconnected and extended, but we want the local network to also be well interconnected. So that's what this project is doing. And I think initially, in the developer, if they're here tonight, would explain to you that I believe initially they were only going to develop an extension off of Lorraine and or Wayne and not go up to Driver's Lane, but then they acquired that to tie these roads together, at least on that small scale. Okay, this is a description in the comp plan of the strategy for building those collector roadways in the Odoms Bend Steam Plant Road area. So I'm not going to read that to you. I just want you to know that not just here, but in many other areas of town, we have similar policies in that comp plan. Circled it here, showing where that road network 40, all of these grid of roads is expected to be. And then I even decided to play with Google today and fabricate that on top of the aerial photograph, so that may explain it a little bit better for you. So I want you to realize that the type of housing is not really what's driving the traffic. The traffic impacts of this is not any different than what they would get if they built single-family homes in that area. So it's very minor. The peak hour is about exactly the same, and the daily traffic generation is just slightly higher.
As a question, Mr. McCord, and it may be partially a statement, so you tell me if I'm wrong in what I'm saying. I think one of the things that people get so frustrated with is that oftentimes, or us on this council get frustrated with, is oftentimes it's not yes or no, it's either or. And I think in this circumstance, we're looking at an either or, because, and here's my statement part that I want you to affirm or deny. With the existing zoning that's on the land, they could build 55 single-family homes with only a connector to Lorraine and Wayne that would generate the same number of trips.
But he said 297 also, didn't he?
What now?
Didn't he say 55 and it could go up to 97?
Well, yeah, with the.
Number of units with the conditional use permit, essentially duplexes.
And so my point is that I think, am I accurate in that they could, what's our number on requiring more than one?
I believe it's 50 is 50. So we emphasize the interconnectivity. We look for that. We
Understand.
get a plan like this. We're not looking for someone to build lollipop subdivision with one way in, one way out. We're always looking for those interconnections.
I understand, but what I'm saying is based on the existing zoning, the developer could be building those as single-family homes that only have access to that neighborhood, maybe 5 less.
Well, zoning doesn't dictate that access. That's in the subdivision
I mean,
regulations. But in the case of a master plan, we implement, because otherwise you're subverting the subdivision regulations if you don't show it in the master plan, which is technically part of the zoning. So we're kind of fusing with the master plan, the subdivision regulations and the design standards of the subdivision regulations into the master plan.
But with the existing zoning, wouldn't you have to figure out a way to make it happen? Or to honor the rights there? Especially when it's a less impactful.
Under the existing zoning, they're entitled to develop their property under
As it's
what the zoning allows.
Which is my
and
point.
or consistent with the subdivision regulations.
Okay, so that.
On the west side of this development that's Lorraine right there. And I've been over there before.
Yeah, right here.
Right. Does Lorraine, it circles around, so there's 2 entrances?
Yeah, well, there's Lorraine here, and that goes out to 109, and then there's I think it's called Corral, and it's a really short street that connects Lorraine to Wayne, and then that connects back to 109 as well.
So it's like a horseshoe road in a
Exactly.
way. Okay.
Exactly.
I have 2 questions. One of them has to do with what Paige just mentioned about the, if there would only be access on to Wayne and Lorraine if they were all single-family homes. Is that true? Why couldn't they go out on Driver's Lane if it was?
No, they could. They could build this street pattern and put single-family homes on it, But keep in mind, you won't have all the open space preserved like that. Putting those single-family homes would lower the amount of open space that you throughout the development.
My other question is, it was 4-2 in planning. What were the reasons for the two that, in the discussion, what were they against?
Well, I don't have the minutes of the planning commission with me, but basically some of the things that were mentioned by some of the residents in the area.
And I, in answer to part of your question, in listening to the planning meetings, the reason that I brought up what I did is because the developers have the one piece of property, or I don't even know if they have it or not, or have it or are trying to acquire it, but that connector to Driver's Lane is an additional piece of property that they were doing, trying to do what they thought was better for
This piece right here.
number, and therefore they went with the townhome development. I think the representatives are here, and they may wish to speak to that in more detail. I think I'm articulating it correctly. If I'm not, do not hesitate to correct me. Mr. Chivance?
Bill, you're talking about preserving open space. But on your map there, is that because of the creek and?
The creek would be, and the creek essentially is this dotted line. It goes, meanders around this dotted line, and it separates phase 1 from phase 2. So it'd be a small bridge built here. But all of this area here would be open space. So instead of having large backyards, they would have a common open space areas, which were their backyard. Now, the traditional single-family lots would have a larger backyard, of course. But the townhomes, essentially their backyard is an open space tract. So that, for the most part, envelops the boundaries, along the boundaries, on all sides of the subdivision, but particularly along the creek that runs through there. And the creek, and I want to mention, it also would include a greenway and a greenway easement that is shown up on the multimodal plan as well, coming up that creek valley.
Single-family units could not be built where the creek is.
We don't encourage anybody to build a home in the creek. You can, I know that's common sense, but believe me, it's happened. And it's happened in Gallatin, right next to a creek. We have older homes that are built that way. We try, in cases of flood zones, we try to direct the developers to stay out of any areas that might be considered flood zone, an A zone, or particularly an AE zone. So we want to have these open spaces. This is not your traditional single-family subdivision where you go out and cut it up and you could care less what type of topographic or natural features that you have. And that's generally what was happened. That's why you have creeks going through the middle of people's lots, and we've seen the issues with Halewood, for example. It's been a problem, even though sometimes those drainage ways go along common lot boundary. Those are the types of things we're trying to avoid. And by saving this open space, it not only provides for flow of stormwater and stuff, but wildlife movement and things of that sort as well.
I understand that. That was my point. I know they can build 50 single-family units, but maybe they can't because of that. And again, I'm looking around, like you said, when you started, everything is R15, R10 or county, and we're gonna pop up townhouses in middle. I looked at Google Map too, and that doesn't fit there. Everything is single-family units. That's what we should stick to.
Well, as I mentioned, I want to clarify this because I'm not sure if y'all, behind here you have duplexes. These are all duplexes, manufactured home duplexes, and then there are mobile homes right off to the west of here, and a couple of mobile homes over here. So you have a variety of housing types. It's not all single family that surrounds this area.
There's a difference between a duplex and a townhome.
I would ask the representatives to come forward at this time, please. I don't know if there's anything else that you guys want to add. I want to know if what I was saying is accurate.
Yes, ma'am. Cal Gentry, Civil Land Company. We're with Eric Beatty. We're developers for the property. Bill, thank you. That was a great presentation. I appreciate that. The one point I want to make beyond what Bill said was when we first put this under contract, it was just the Smith piece. And we realized we were dumping all of those traffic trips onto Lorraine and Wayne. We went out and, yes, please. We went out and when we looked at it, we were putting all the single family, had to go out to Lorraine. There was no other way. So we looked at what we could do and we figured out after pre-app with engineering and planning that the northbound connection to Timberwood Drive was very important. We put that piece under contract. But when we looked at what that road was, you can't fit any single family on it. So the road section north up to Driver's Lane is too expensive to do if we do the single family development. So if we do the single family development, we can't make the connection to drivers. That took us to the townhomes where we get a few more units. And it's a different product type. I agree, that's a little bit different. But those extra units allowed us to pay for the connection up to drivers. That's why we're here with the project that we have. We started with single family, but we couldn't. And when you put the connection to drivers on there, the traffic, we did a traffic study at preliminary master because we knew it was going to be important. We didn't wait to final. And our traffic study indicates the traffic splits about half going to drivers and half to Lorraine. So doing this also reduces the impact on Lorraine by half. So did that answer your question?
Absolutely, thank you. Anyone else with questions or Mr.
Yeah,
Campbell?
a comment. I mean,
Wait,
Thank you first.
Thank you, gentlemen. I was actually at the planning when you did all the changes and stuff, so I appreciate what you did.
Thank
I had a meeting with our head of David Kellogg a couple of days ago after the issues we had with the weather. And I learned something I didn't know, that the majority of the new townhomes are only electrical units.
Or what, Pascal?
Only electrical. They don't bring gas because the way they build them all together, they don't have room to build gas. So it's 100% electric. Is that the case on your development?
We have not gotten that far in the product design. I've done townhomes with gas. I've done townhomes without. If it's important one way or the other, Mr. Kellogg, we can work one direction or the other for him, or to the council as well.
Cal?
Yes, sir.
Was you through, Pascal?
I'm good.
This was a good product right here, Griffin. The only reason I voted against it because they said apartments, but I could see the plan. I try to look over yours right there. I've got a couple of questions. One, are these full gables? Were they parapets?
Full gables.
Full gable. And I couldn't see anything on the landscape plan. I mean, you got enough landscaping. Is it irrigated?
Yes, sir. It'll be irrigated, and the intention would be for the units to be mowed by the homeowners association. They may end up doing individualized, but landscape plan won't be prepared until that final master level. But we tried to show a little bit.
I tried to look, so that's
Yeah.
why I asked you that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to make sure we get a good enough product that's even something that I voted against.
Yes, sir. Understand. Thank you.
Nice.
yeah, I mean, and I think it's a good project too. I know that planning and engineering not going to like this, but, you know, my thing is, you know, the majority of those people, I think, are going to go out Lorraine because it's going to be the shortest distance to 109. And that's where you're going to have most of your traffic impact is from them going out Lorraine. My thing is, if we do this project like this, I would like to see us shut off Lorraine and just have them go out driver's lane to the red light. Because you're very seldom going to get that many people go from Lorraine, that subdivision, through there to go to driver's lane, to go out.
Contradicts what he said his traffic study showed.
Greg, say that again. You said you wanted to cut it off at Lorraine?
Yeah.
And make everybody go out on driver's lane?
Yes. You know, eventually, and I don't know how long that'll be, but you are going to have other entrances on the, I don't know what side that is. Maybe, yes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
On the east side?
Yeah. To Wayne and to the other side there, if that ever develops.
That seems to address the concerns of everybody that's.
I mean, that's just my take on it. If we're going to do the project like that, then that's what I would like to see us do.
You're conflicting with the commitment you made to require multiple entrances for a large development.
Can we just use Lorraine Drive as an emergency entrance and exit?
You can.
We tried that before and it never worked, right?
Guys voted that down a few times.
I think we were told we weren't able to do that.
Why was it voted down? Does anybody remember?
No, I mean, you can do that. We can do that. Yes, we can do that.
I don't think it's a good idea to shut off an entry.
Also
I
going to
mean,
have
that's
them.
just, that's my
going-
take on it. I mean, I mean, and I know they probably want to, look at it, study it some more too. I don't have a problem moving it on because it's not even the first reading yet. It's still got to go to public hearing and still got to go second reading. So, but that's just my take on it.
I'm not against the project, but I think Craig did make a lot of sense in that I think I've been out in that area before now. It's been a while since I've owned driver's lane. But I think and I feel that all these new customers right here, or new citizens would be, or owners would be using Lorraine to exit this neighborhood.
I think so too. Right, and that's what it is.
They're gonna go the shortest route. It's human nature.
But is driver's lane, that's one thing I was asking. Like I said, I haven't been out there in a while. Would driver's lane be able to?
Handle the traffic?
Yes.
Yeah.
So more,
Yes.
more so than those
Yeah.
Lorraine Street.
Yep.
I've driven that a number of times over the weekend, and I think the project itself, it fits into the community.
Yeah, I agree.
I
But
agree.
I'm just, I just think those people are the majority of them, how many ever trips, it's gonna be 80% are going out that way.
What if, I'm just thinking out loud, what if you cut off the connector there, but kept the connector to Wayne? Because that's kind of that's further out of the way.
Where's, I mean, my eyes are not that.
I know, I'm having trouble too here.
Point it.
Let's see, Wayne is here, and then that would go out that way if it got developed that way.
I think you probably want to hear Mr. Tuttle's or Mr. Hickson's thoughts on that.
Well, you've got the road at the south of this project deadhead right into Wayne. Is that correct?
That road's not complete yet. It's later on. Maybe. You never know. And like I said, I don't have a problem moving it on. And then, if they want to take a look at it, yeah, I'll make a motion. Yeah.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, a second by Councilman
That doesn't mean we're
Van.
approving anything. That just means that we're sending it on because it's got to go to first reading, then it's got to go to public
Right.
hearing, and then
Second.
probably work session, and then second again. But, that was just my take on it. That's how I feel.
And I would be with you, but I'd like to hear more about what you're talking about too, about cutting off,
That's what he's really saying. We're moving it on. So that-
And Cal, when it shows back up, could you give me a little bit bigger, or us a little bit bigger plat? Might be something where we can,
Especially where it connects, so you can see the roadways, yes. sir.
And also, not that they're gonna say that, but they might say, hey, we might wanna go single family or something, I don't know.
Go single family, then all the traffic's going on to Lorraine and Wayne.
Well,
So
I mean,
there's that.
well, I know, but I mean,
And,
it's,
and that,
Yeah.
that is what I would call their entitlement, which is what the either or decision that makes it difficult is, so.
You have to think about price point out there too. If you're doing single homes, it's gonna be a whole lot more than townhomes.
Cal, I'm not saying I'm voting for it. I don't mind pushing it on and looking at it some more.
We have,
I
I
appreciate
do
the
have
feedback.
concerns.
Yes, sir.
have a motion, a second, any further discussion? None, all in favor of moving ordinance 02212-71 on to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
It sounds like it passed 6-1. Mr. Juvant's voting against. Am I accurate in that? Okay, noted as such. Item number 3 is, thank you, gentlemen. Item number 3 is ordinance 02301-3. Chuck Stewart, building official.
Chuck Stewart, building official. This is an ordinance appropriating $70,000 from business contributions from Project Woolhawk for building code department expenses. We got the opportunity to replace our 2 oldest trucks, being told you can't find vehicles, but we did find 2. We have two 14-year-old trucks that we can replace now that we can get our hands on. And also some money's going into the education. We got a pretty good jump in education expenses January the 1st.
Motion to send to council.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Fan, second by Councilman Hayes. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to just tell Chuck, I think the market's eased up a lot. I see it on my end. I think that you might be getting into some good territory to be able to find you something.
Oh, he's found some.
Excuse me,
He's
Paige.
found some.
Okay.
Yeah, they were on a train somewhere, but we did find them. Thank you.
Other comments, discussion? Okay, ordinance 02301-3, all in favor of moving on to council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Excellent. Item number 4 is discussion of ordinance 02212-68, passed on first reading last week. You asked to have Mr. Stewart come back and discuss caps or, potential adding a cap to it. I'll let him say what he wants to say too, but we have discussed it. And Mr. Stewart, again, if I state wrong what you think, what I think, then please correct me. But I think he feels like most of the fees that we would be not charging them have already been incurred. I think that any future fees probably would not exceed $50,000. And so when y'all talked about a cap, I realized none of us had the scope or the idea of the scope. Are we talking about $5,000? Or are we talking about $500,000? So I think that will help you feel more comfortable with what we're agreeing to. So with that, Mr. Stewart.
Okay, I will give you the numbers. Pending expenses are bills that have been sent to me are for $407,235.50. Those fees are for plan review fees and for the building permit. Now, unless they come back and did a wholesale change in this building and had to resubmit because of changes, there'd be no additional fees. If they did do wholesale changes, then there'd be additional plan review fees and there'd be additional building permit fees. But they're at that point now in that building, I don't see them making a change in it. I think where we are. The other fees are currently been paid. We're up to date right now on everything that's been permitted and billed. Will we continue to build this project out until its completion? Personally, my staff and I looking at this building think it's going to be earliest it could come online be in spring of '24. Outside looks like it's going real good. The inside's dead. It got a lot of work to do.
Mr. Stewart, are you speaking specifically to the courthouse, or are you talking about future fees on the parking garage?
Parking garage, all we have is a permit issued, and it's been included in this amount.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions you might have on this
So
project?
are you saying we don't need to put a cap on it, really? I mean, there's nothing, there's no.
That's kind of
So it's a set fee. Building permits and plan reviews are set fees. If you want to put a cap on it, $50,000, then if something really happened, it would be.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm actually, I thought it was a great suggestion when it was made, but then, like I said, discussing it with Mr. Stewart and I'm okay with where we are. And if something drastically changes, then we change it. But I do think, a cap would probably make the county uneasy. And I think in this instance, they should be fairly, we've done everything.
Good with it too.
I'll need to come back to you in the other business after
I-
council on the same project. Thank you.
Buddy, email?
Yes, ma'am. I think it's easier, the way I see it, it's easier to put a cap and not to have to go there or to change the cap if we need to, like Chuck said, there is something, happen where things can be changed that we need to protect the taxpayer money. So there is no cost of putting a cap, and we show we're responsible for the money. And if nothing happened, it's just a number. And if something happened, we can revise that if we need to. But we've seen that they already came back. Something happened with the parking, and they came back asking for more money. So
If the cost increases.
if the cost increase. Yes, ma'am.
That's where we are. So it's going on to council next week. I don't know that we need any kind of vote, so, unless someone wanted to make a motion to amend at this time, or you can do it next week. Okay. Let's move along then to item number 5, which is ordinance 02301-4. Mr. DePriest.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the ordinance to reappropriate $950 from insurance recovery to our building maintenance and repair line. We had our mailbox at our Public Works building taken out by an accident a few months ago, and we got it rebuilt. And that's about almost 20% of that one line. I know it's a small amount, but on that one line, it's kind of large. So.
Second.
By Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of moving ordinance 02301-4 on to council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It is unanimously moved forward. Item number 6 is ordinance 02301-9. Mr. Tuttle.
At the bottom of this, Jennifer. Separate file. Found it. Thank you. All right, good evening. This ordinance is an appropriation ordinance for $110,000 for a project that has come about in a fairly unique way. And I wanted to give you a little bit of history on it because it is a little complicated with how we've gotten here. But a few years ago, we had a group come forward and request to rezone the property there at the inside of 109 Bypass and South Water. Let me show you how to do it. That's it. Bill's nice little pointer that we've got.
Yeah.
Windsong Development is what it was called. Council agreed to approve that project with actually multiple connections to residential areas all around, to Duncan Street and to Elk Acres. And I actually had an email from someone just last week asking when Elk Acres was going to be opened up so that they could get into the Windsong development instead of going out onto the Highway 109. But that's kind of a side point. But as this developer came in, you all are probably fairly familiar with the Hellwood Estates subdivision that has been around for probably half a century and has a myriad of drainage issues and complaints and lots of problems. Bill referenced folks building on creeks and beside creeks, and that kind of thing was done within the Hellwood Estates development. And so there was lots of concern about what the Windsong development would do because, as you can see here with this watershed map, these blue lines and arrows are all pointing in this direction and go from Windsong development up through the Hellwood Estates community. And so, understandably, there was some concern that there would be some issues, but we've been working with the Windsong developer now for a few years to make sure that that's not going to be the case. As a matter of fact, they designed their facilities to far exceed what our minimum requirements are of 10-year storm events, designed all their facilities to meet the 100-year storm design requirements. And they also gave money, the Windsong developer gave money to go towards developing what you see in front of you, which was a watershed study to try to come up with solutions to make improvements, to not just maintain, but actually improve. And so this next slide that I have goes into one of the alternatives that was pointed out, a part of that alternative that was pointed out as a potential help and fix to things that were happening. Let me go back to that first slide really quick.
and show you where we've gone into and zoomed in. We're going to look at this area of Windsong right here first, and then we're going to go up here to this area of Windsong that's actually right behind the new Publix. So the first one is here in this upper left corner of Windsong, and that is what we've got here. And so the residential developer has actually gone in and built a little berm here that was proposed in this particular watershed study that was above and beyond what they had to do. And then as we moved along, there was a much larger improvement that was pointed out that the city could consider as an improvement to add in this area that would make a lot of difference and improvement to the stuff that's downstream. And that's a small detention area that is actually going to be located in the Windsong development that, again, is above and beyond something that the city could consider. So as we have been moving along and trying to figure out ways to incorporate things within this development, the residential developer approached us and said, we have some extra material here on site that we're going to need to dispose of in some way. Do you think that it's possible we could help you with the project that you've identified that could help all these property owners downstream? And we said, absolutely, we think that's possible. And so this project was identified as probably about if you did read the memo, it's probably about a $260,000 project that would be proposed to build that detention area there. And again, the developer has no responsibility to do this, but they're actually wanting to create some synergy here, and there's a little benefit for them to be able to dispose of the material that they have, but it is going to cost them something. And so to make this work, we did have to make sure that everything was above board and legal, and working with the comptroller to make sure that there was a way that this was competitively bid out. And of course, it was done in a way that really it only made sense for one person to be able to do this, because they have everything they need here, and it's such an easy job for them to do. And so we bid this out in December. We received the bid back of $110,000 instead of $260,000, which is great news. But we've also been coordinating and communicating this back with the commercial developer, and they're willing to give the remainder of the $100,000 that they said that they would commit in the first place, which is about $48,000 left. So they gave $52,000 for the study that we completed, and they still have $48,000 that they said that they would give towards this. So what I'm saying to you in a long-winded way is that we have about a $260,000 project that the city will pay approximately $60,000 for, with the rest being covered by the residential developer and then the donation from the commercial developer. And so for us, it's really an absolute no-brainer. We're looking to actually appropriate funds that we already have in our stormwater utility. So we would use the approximately $60,000 from our stormwater utility and go towards this stormwater project. So,
motion to approve.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Are there any questions or any discussion?
Great work.
Seeing none, it is exciting, and I think, I mean, for the benefit of people, and you may have said this when I stepped out, but I mean, this is a neighborhood that has had issues for my entire life, longer than my entire life. So I'm excited to be able to help that neighborhood out. So all those in favor of moving ordinance 02301-9 on the council, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. Item number 7, and we begin the Nick Tuttle Show, is ordinance 02301-5.
these others will be much quicker. Number 7 is much like what Mr. DePriest brought up. It's an appropriation of funds from insurance claims. It's already been repaired. It was actually this flasher right out here on Main Street for the fire department.
Motion to send on.
Second.
The motion, was it you, Councilman Fennell, second by Councilman Hayes.
Any discussion? All in favor of moving ordinance 02301-5 on the council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Does pass unanimously. Item number 8 is resolution R2301-10.
The next 6 are very similar type items. The first 3 of the 6 are in the same subdivision, the Kennesaw Farms Development. If you don't mind, I'll mention them all together. Phase 3, Section 3, Phase 4, Section 2C, Phase 6, Section 1. For those that probably haven't seen this kind of thing before, we have developers that construct what will become public infrastructure, both stormwater, transportation, and public utilities. Once they get it constructed, inspected, they will dedicate that to the city to accept. And that's what we're doing here with this. It's already been through the Planning Commission with a recommendation for acceptance. And I could name all the streets, but there's about 10 or 11 that you probably don't want to hear me say.
Motion to approve 8, 9, and 10.
Second.
Kennesaw Boulevard, Kennesaw Farms.
Okay, we have a motion to move forward 8, 9, and 10 from Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Fennell. Any discussion on these? All right, these are resolutions R2301-10, -4, and -3. All in favor of sending on to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. They are passed on to council unanimously. Item 11 is resolution R2301-2.
Number 11 is accepting public improvements for Foxland Phase 6, Section 1. And that is a section of Foxland Boulevard and a section of Fenner Lane at the back of the Foxland development.
Motion to send on.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes and Fennell, second by Love, and was it you, Javance? Okay, and Javance, okay. All at once there. That was like a choir happening. Any discussion? This is resolution R2301-2. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Does pass unanimously. Item 12 is resolution R2301-6.
And if you don't mind, I'll ask you to consider 12 and 13 together. Also, the same subdivision, Meadow Glen at Fairway Farms. This is Section 1 and Section 2. And these are the sections that come off of Red River Road with about 8, actually 9 different sections of streets. Would like for me to read them? Be happy to. Grassy Glen Drive, Oakley Drive, Rosiedale Drive, Bristol Drive, another section of Oakley Drive, Halifax Lane, Wassell Drive, Bristol Drive, Crowley Lane.
Motion to move them both on.
Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilwoman George. Any questions or discussions on items 12 and 13? Okay, all in favor of moving forward R2301-6 and -5, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. They do pass unanimously. Item 14, resolution R2301-7, Ms. Flood.
Good evening, Council. During the pay study, we made some changes to a position, Information Systems Supervisor, and one being we made it Assistant Director level. And due to this change, we're requesting tonight, or I'm requesting, to move this role from hourly to salary. And this change would make it consistent with other positions at the Assistant Director level.
Motion to send it on.
Thank you very much.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Fennell. Are there any questions? Mr. Javance?
Yes, ma'am. We're talking a salary position, but the ordinance is talking about hourly.
Sorry, what now?
We're moving them from hourly to salary.
Yeah, but on the ordinance, I say it's talking starting hourly at 34 something. I'm confused.
Let me look at her.
He's talking, right.
It says it will be reclassified as a salary position with no change to grade and hourly rate. All of the salaried positions have a base hourly rate.
Okay.
So, they divide the salary by 52 weeks by 40 hours, and that becomes the hourly rate.
Okay.
And that's how they're set in the step in the salary steps, you'll see them by an hourly rate, even when they are salaried position.
Okay, and another thing, just matter of words, but last week when we talked about changing the charter, we talked about changing the title to CIO. And here we're talking about,
At the director level, at the CIO, the assistant,
it's just a wording, but
Right.
here we're
That's something
talking
you
about
need to ask.
assistant director of IT. So
we did change the IT director to CIO
Yeah,
a few
so-
years back. But it's still the IT department. That's something I think Ms. Flood can
Just
answer
wording,
better
but-
than
Or
me.
Ms. LaFever could weigh in on it on that. Yeah.
to keep it, keep it level. If we have a CIO, we should have
An assistant CIO, does
Yeah.
anyone have an issue with that? Ms. LaFever?
I don't think
Do you
you
have an
do
issue?
assistant chiefs, you
Don't
do
know.
a different type of title.
Deputy?
Or maybe a deputy chief or something like that, because.
A lot of the other departments have him as assistant director. You just didn't like that, or?
No, we changed the title from director of IT to chief information officer. So that was just a question to keep, because
What if we do a little bit of research this week and when it's on the agenda next week,
I
can
just,
we come back
sure.
to you? Is that okay?
yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is Resolution R2301-7. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. Item 15 is Resolution R2301-8. Ms. Hamakali.
Yes, this is from PEP, which is our insurance company. This is a matching grant that would get for property conservation. And the only department who has said that they're going to have an expense that would be allowed is the IT department for some cybersecurity monitoring software.
So this is a grant that's available to us because we are essentially a customer of theirs.
Correct.
And it's not a lot of dollars, but it's dollars that we can get for an expense that we would have been paying out of general fund anyway. So
Motion to send it on.
motion by
Second.
Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Juvance. Are there any questions, comments, discussion? Okay, this is Resolution R2301-8. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It does pass unanimously. Item 16 is Resolution R2301-9. Ms. Hamakali and Ms. Burke Salyers, I want to apologize. I should have moved you up. I didn't realize this meeting would be quite this long. But I should have moved you to the first of the meeting, so I appreciate you being here this evening. Ms. Hamakali?
Yes, so just a little bit of background. I'm going to try to be very brief. But in 1934, some property was donated to the city from Miss Willie Lane Davis. And that was in 1934. She died, I believe, the next year. And that property in the deed where she donated to the city, there was a stipulation that the property has to be used for a community-type center for the underprivileged. For years, the Gallatin Daycare was located on this property. When they built a new building, Ashley's Place came in. And we think that it was probably in about 2003 that Ashley's Place moved in to the building. It's time to do a new lease with them. The lease, the proposed lease is in your packet. Not much has changed from the past. I've updated just a little bit. It will be for a 10-year lease for the property. And I'll let you explain why, but in the past, we've done 5 years, but I believe they're going to get some influx of money. And of course, they don't want to put a lot of money into a building if we're going to say in 5 years, you've got to move out. I don't think we have the intention of doing that anyway. I don't see an issue at all of extending it to be a 10-year lease. If anybody has any questions about the lease, it's in your packet. I can go through it. It's a pretty standard lease.
Second. Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Any comments, questions, discussion?
Would you want to tell the council what?
Yeah, I can kind of explain. So the state chapter of Tennessee Child Advocacy Centers had worked very hard with the past during the last legislative session. And so they had secured some this is going to be a one-time funding that we're going to get in the next fiscal year, so July 1st. It has to be spent in that fiscal year, so this is not money that we can put into a rainy day fund or anything like that, so it does have to be used by June 30th of '24. We do have a guaranteed 25 to 30% VOCA cut funding coming that funds our victim family advocates, so some of that is going to be used to offset that loss for at least that fiscal year while we figure out kind of the ongoing of that. But we will have north of $50,000 that we would like to use to put into the building, but again, as you'd mentioned, it's just having a little bit of that security of putting money into a building we don't own. And then, and of course, hoping we're going to get, our money's worth out of that. We've slotted kind of a handful of potential projects. Of course, we understand each of those would need to get approval once we kind of decide where we for sure want to put that money and plan to do so accordingly.
I knew you was having some issues with the building. What was the main issue that you was having with it?
Roof right now, right?
Roof right now. We're moving some stuff around. We'll get that taken care of as far as to fix that. I know we did, Lyndon had gotten a quote for me on that, and we'd said, we'll get that taken care of. I mean, there's several things. Some of the things off the top of our head that we've kind of spitballed with the board. New siding is desperately needed. We would love to look at doing maybe some kind of, if anybody has spent any length of time in that building, stays pretty cold in the winter in certain spots. It stays pretty hot in the summer in certain areas. Maybe doing some, insulation, whether in the crawl space, in the wall, something to help maybe with some of that. Chain link fence on the outside could be, I say replaced. It's not a chain link that's out there. Those are just a couple of things that we've looked at. Nothing that's set in stone. Just, some of them help with utility bills and those types of things. Some of it just from a looks, standpoint, as far as we've got kids and families coming, to that building. They're coming to be interviewed about potential allegations of sex abuse. They're coming for therapy. They're coming for court prep. Our idea of a child advocacy center is to provide a safe space, and we want that to, look the part just as much as be the part.
And look nice and be comfortable. Do we have a motion and a second?
We had a motion and a
Okay.
second.
Clerk Sayers, thank you for y'all.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You guys do a
Thank you.
tremendous service to young people in our community, so thank you. Okay, so this is resolution R2301-9. All in favor of sending on to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Is passed on unanimously. Item number 17 is resolution R2301-11, which is the electric power board appointment. And I am going to recommend that we appoint Vice Mayor Love to the electric power board.
Motion
But
consent on,
I found out you had to climb one of them poles before you got up.
She's up for the task.
Can I designate Steve Fan to do that climbing for me?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilwoman Fidel. I'm so sorry. I was hearing her right as I said that. Councilman Fennell, any questions, comments, discussions? Okay, all in favor of sending it on? Did y'all have a question? Oh. Okay. Okay, this resolution R2301-11, all in favor of sending on to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. It does pass unanimously, and that concludes our regular agenda, bringing us now to other business. I do have just one item that I want to mention to you all, and that is related to what we're going to be voting on next week, related to the recorder and the city judge. I have been asked by a council member and also by a board for you guys to look at putting the economic development director also under the authority of the council and mayor. It actually does not have to go in the charter, and I know I'm throwing it at you, so I just want to mention it to you as a request that has come this way, give you time to think about it. it would affect some ordinances. I have some that I can share with you before you leave. I don't think it's appropriate to discuss it, and since it doesn't have to go in the charter, it's not anything urgent for us to address, but I want that on your radar. And that's my only other business item.
Sorry, Mayor, I didn't catch what do you want to add on?
I was asked by a council member and by the Economic Development Agency Board because that had come up and it had been, someone had, or a couple of people, I guess, had made the observation that it might be time. Right now, the Economic Development Agency Director is under the authority of a board in its entirety, but there's some conflict to some degree because they're a city employee with all the benefits of the city employees. I do think the board is very, very valuable to the Economic Development Agency. I would not want us to go away from that by any way, shape, or form. But in talking with Ms. High McCauley about this, it's not a change that has to happen in our charter. So I don't think it's anything urgent for us to address, but because I said I would pass it on to this body for some level of consideration, that's what I'm doing. And I can hand you the ordinance as you leave tonight if you would like to read those so that you can kind of see how that's established. So that's my other business, and I would ask if
So
the-
what do we do from this? We just bring it up?
Nothing at this point. I will ask you again what your thoughts are as we move forward and how and if and how you want to address it.
So we'll discuss it later.
Okay.
I think we should put it on the next work session.
I can do that. Is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I make a
Okay,
motion to
motion
put
by
it on the
Mr.
next
Javon.
work session.
A second by Councilman Fennell. Any questions, discussion on this motion? All in favor of putting on the next work session, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. No, 2. 5 and 2, no. Ms. Love and Mr. Hayes, no, correct?
On the work session, it's just to discuss
Right.
reason why.
Right.
Just to discuss it.
Yeah. Okay, very good. I will make a note to put that on the next work session, if my pen will work. And any other business from this council body? Mr. Chubans.
Yes, ma'am. We just made the nomination for the electric board, but I think Craig, you resigned from the Resource Authority Board, and your seat is open. So when do we plan to?
This is where we have a conflict because it has been the city's,
Wait till the charter comes back.
yeah, and see, it has been the city's understanding for so many years, and honestly, I think in the city's best interest to have a representative from this council on that body. But because we are in technical conflict, we have to get that resolved with the charter change that has to go through the legislature. So right now, that seat is vacant.
So, okay. So it's going to take for 6 to 8 months. There's not going to be nobody on that seat.
I'm sorry?
No, it'll take a while to go to legislature, come back.
I think it'll take a few months. Right now, we do have another representative on that body who is a Gallatin citizen, obviously not a city council
Yeah, yeah.
member.
Who is it?
LK Lanham.
Craig, I gotta say that I've been using the Resource Authority every day now for about 2 weeks, so there's a lot of issues I'd like to address with.
I know, I've been trying to tell him I don't want him on there. I want to put myself on there because the operations.
That's why we you know, and everybody knows that we've got a new facility that we're in the process of building or getting funded for and everything like that, so. It is funded.
So someone is sitting in your seat right now? Back there?
No, that's what
We just have one person.
Anyone else, other business? Hey, department head.
See Linda climb that pole first.
What?
I like to see Linda climb that pole.
Appropriate, Mr. Fan. Department heads. Mr. Stewart, I know that you have something.
Thank you. As we were discussing the courthouse, I've been dealing with them all day today. They've requested to work every Sunday through September. And you know, we have an ordinance against working on Sunday. Now, in commercial ventures, we do allow this depending on location. If there's no residential or anything they could disturb by working on Sunday, we do approve this. They worked last Sunday and without approval, and we had a complaint called in. So I have a meeting tomorrow morning, and it's my inclination at this time to deny them being able to work on Sunday. I've got church across the street, church next door, residential behind them. And I'd just like to get your blessing on this because I'm probably gonna be a little battle tomorrow.
I want the input of the churches, most of all. You know, it don't sound right working on Sunday when there's church services going on. I don't get that.
And especially if it's already against what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
we've
No,
already had a complaint.
no work on Sunday. That's.
Thank you.
What are y'all passing around over there?
Same thing, I'm gonna pass your direction. What I said to get to the after meeting, but I figured you might not, because those of you on that side will head for the door. Okay, any other department heads with anything? Seeing none. One more motion, folks. Motion to adjourn by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilwoman George. All in favor, say aye. Ladies and gentlemen, have a lovely evening, and we will see you back here next week. Good night.